Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. It is Canucks Conversation, and it is not a game day edition, but we're going to be talking to Abbotsford Canucks forward Phil Di Giuseppe on today's show, and that's going to be a good time because the Abbotsford Canucks, if you haven't heard yet, play tomorrow. They open the Western Conference Final of the AHL playoffs in Abbotsford. We've got something at the CanucksArmy YouTube channel right now. Raw footage, Canucks practice at the Abbotsford Center. It's good stuff, courtesy of our man, Jeff Patterson. But I wanted to quickly get this in off the hop. There was an update, but not really, on Atu Ratu, who we've been looking for a bit. Hasn't played for a while. This was what Manny Malhotra said. Everybody that's skating is a possibility. Playoff hockey means he's day-to-day, and he'll be evaluated on a day-to-day basis. Manny added that Ratu had been skating on his own for a while. It looked like he was in a full contact jersey today, like he was a full participant in practice. So maybe we see him during this playoff round. He'd certainly be a big boost to this Abbotsford team.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive that they've gone to this point despite weathering injuries to him. Wolanin earlier in the playoffs, Lekermaki missing a few games, and even down the stretch, this has kind of been the theme for Abbotsford, as they've been able to weather the storm of not only injuries, but we saw when the big club needed help, so many of Abbotsford's top guys were getting shuffled up to play for the big club, and yet that's when Abbotsford went on that tear to close out the regular season and hasn't looked back. So resilience has sort of been the theme for this Abbey team, but if you get Ratu back, who is arguably their top center, that would obviously be a huge boost.
All right, chat is already talking about Morgan Geeky, because on today's show, we're also going to talk about some RFA targets for the Canucks. You wrote a really good piece over at The Athletic where you dove into 12 names, and we're going to dive into some of those names on today's show. But before we do that, I want to tell everybody our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. I want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Okay, I wanted to get this out of the way as well as we just wait on Phil here. The Edmonton Oilers, man. Oh, I said it with some confidence. I've been saying it with confidence about Florida as well. They lose Zach Hyman in that game, but they still took care of business. I asked you about the Hyman injury. He's out for the rest of the playoffs with a hand surgery that he got this morning, which is quick turnaround. But for Zach Hyman, like, how much do you think that impacts the Oilers the rest of the way here?
It is significant. We know that Edmonton's supporting cast offensively has really stepped up. RNH has been superhuman in this Western Conference Final, but Hyman is so valuable, not just because of what he does as a goal scorer, but a bigger body that gets in on the forecheck, is such a physical presence. He's been racking up so many hits in these playoffs. And especially if you're looking at a potential Stanley Cup final rematch where you're going up against the Florida Panthers, and we know how mean and nasty the Panthers are, you're really going to miss Hyman's ability to push back and be a menace in his own right. So good on the Oilers for taking care of business in Game 4. I expect them to take this series against the Stars, but Hyman's injury will hurt them, and I think it only amplifies the, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but the importance of RNH continuing the strong form that he's shown in these playoffs. For Evander Kane to, be a more consistent sort of difference maker, sort of like he was earlier in the playoffs as well. It just puts a little bit more of an onus on the other supporting cast of forwards who, for the most part, during this playoff run for the Oilers, have exceeded expectations.
I want to talk about the Dallas angle as well, because we're going to talk about the Oilers again. I'm sure we're going to have Bag Milk on the show at some point to talk about the Oilers, because it looks like they're going to the Cup final. But I wanted to ask you about the Dallas angle of all of this, Harm. For the Dallas Stars, like, what do you look at as, like, actually, I don't know if I want to ask you, what do you look at as the big problem for them, or where they go from here? I'm going to just leave it open-ended. The Dallas Stars.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, because the Stars after the trade deadline were maybe looked at as the best team on paper, as, like, I've had people sort of asking me, what did the Stars do wrong here? They're choking. What's gone wrong? What's their flaw? And sometimes the reality is you just run into a team that is flat out better than you. And I think in the case of the Oilers, we know that there are more volatile than most contenders, in the sense that when even in the regular season, we've seen that when they hit lows, their lows are lower than other contenders because, a lot of times their goaltending goes out the window. The defensive play can sort of crumble. The secondary scoring can sort of be more consistent, but their high side case, their ceiling is higher than any other team in the NHL. And this is just a case of this Oilers team has their fastball and nobody can, at least in the Western Conference, hit it right now. For me, it's not that the Dallas Stars have been built in a flawed way. This is an elite team top to bottom. It's just from an execution standpoint, too many of their forwards outside of Mikko Rantanen haven't produced enough, right? Matt Duchene has been too quiet. He's a guy that had 82 points in the regular season. He only has one goal in these playoffs. Mason Marchment, only one goal in these playoffs. Jason Robertson, we know he's been playing banged up, and he's produced a little bit in this series, but just 2 goals in 10 games for him. Dadonov, just 1 goal in 16 games. Jamie Benn only has 3 points and 1 goal in 17 games. So to me, the story for the Stars team is that Wyatt Johnston, he's a guy that you expect to be a star, and is so young and talented, but he hasn't been producing at a point per game level either. So really, it's just a case of they have the talent on paper. Just too many of their core forwards outside of Rantanen have been struggling. That's not just the theme in this Oilers series, but that was the theme in round 1 against Colorado and round 2 against Winnipeg as well.
More conversation on this to follow. We'll get to it, I'm sure, and anyone else. But we're going to get to Phil Di Giuseppe, who's brought to you by our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance the 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, joining us now, Phil Di Giuseppe of the Abbotsford Canucks. Phil, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. How are you doing?
Oh, it's working.
Oh,
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Right now, your team is just rolling. We've seen big performances from Archer Shelovs. We've seen big performances from yourself. Many guys up and down the list. What's impressed you the most to this point on this Calder Cup playoff run? We lost Phil. We'll get him back. Jacob's going to work on it. Harm, I asked you the same question. What's impressed you the most about this Abbotsford Canucks playoff run? Because for me, and again, we talked about individual guys, and honestly, the fact he dropped out, I might be able to reframe that question a bit better. But as a team, what's impressed you the most when you watch this Abbotsford team play?
I mean, look, there are a lot of individual standout performances, but to me, it's the fact that everybody has largely been contributing. And look, that's a cliche that, you're doing it as a team, but that's genuinely been the case for Abbotsford. They haven't been, like Shelovs has been terrific. Mancini has been outstanding, but it's not like they've been carried by star-worthy performances by like 2 or 3 guys and that the rest of the supporting cast hasn't been lifting their weight. A lot of times it's been different lines, different guys stepping up in key moments. In the Colorado series, Lecker-Mackey got going in the middle of it. Sasson had a big goal, but then also Linus Karlsson in that series clinching victory stepped up huge. Different guys on the blue line have been able to make an impact as well. So I think what's impressed me the most for this Abbotsford team is simply that, like, from lines 1 to 4, genuinely everybody can contribute. There aren't any weak spots on this roster. There isn't like a soft underbelly for teams to expose where if you're an opposing team looking to play Abbotsford, it's not like you can look at, Abbotsford's third line, that's a weakness, we can expose them there, because I've said this before, but what a luxury that Abbotsford has been able to roll out like Sammy Blais and Jujhar Khaira on an AHL third line when those are guys that have been in the NHL before. So I think the depth of this Abbotsford team is probably the most impressive part.
People are having a good time with that. Phil, was it something I said?
No, I think the Wi-Fi just cut out here.
No worries. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. The question, and we were just diving into it ourselves as well. This team's been so impressive. Again, a lot of individual efforts, but as a team, what's impressed you the most in this Calder Cup playoff run?
I think the steadiness and the composure as a collective group, whether we're down a goal or up by one goal, I find in tight games I've been impressed by just about everybody. The pressure's not getting to anybody, and everyone seems very comfortable, no matter what situation we're faced with.
Just generally speaking, I wanted to ask you about playing playoff hockey in the Lower Mainland. Obviously, last year you're part of Vancouver's run to the second round, Game 7, and now Abbotsford as well. Like, just anecdotally, it feels like a lot of people in the city are starting to jump on the bandwagon, and there's been a lot of support. Just as a player, how cool is it to sort of see the level of support in the Lower Mainland? Because I'll be honest, like last year and this year, when you see a pro team in the BC area go deep, it really seems like the city jumps on board and there's a ton of buzz and excitement. And I'm curious what your experience has been.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's cool when people care. If you go to a game, you can tell that people are emotionally invested, and when we win, it makes their day. So it's special that we can have that effect on people, and the other way around, especially at home, our crowds have been phenomenal. I know everybody's excited to play tomorrow, and to play in front of our fans. So playoff hockey is cool.
Phil, this Manny Malhotra hype video is making the rounds all over social media. I'm not sure if you saw it. You were there for it. It was just a post-game, his speech to the locker room. It got me fired up. I felt ready to run through a wall. What's it been like playing for Manny?
Yeah, he's a very good communicator. I think that's probably the most, if not one of the most important things as a coach in today's game. I think, decades ago it was very military or militant, and I find today, being a good communicator often, translates to having success. I guess with today's players. So he's a very good communicator, very disciplined, and very straightforward. So I like him as a coach. I think he's very honest, and it's easy for us to follow.
One thing that's really stood out for you guys sort of from the second half onward of the regular season is, like, you guys at times have had a depleted roster, right? Whether it was call-ups to Vancouver down the stretch, and yet, that's obviously when you guys pulled off that historic winning streak. And then even the playoffs, you guys have missed, some of your top guys at various stages. What stood out for you with this group as far as why you've been able to stay so resilient through some of these injuries and absences and just like losing key guys and still as a team not really skipping a beat?
I don't want to give you the same answer, but I'm going to reflect back on how I answered your first question. I think it's the steadiness and the comfortability of the group. I've been on teams where you lose a star player or a guy that produces, and everyone, kind of freezes or looks around on who's going to pick up the slack. And I find with our group, obviously we want everybody healthy, but no matter who's in, we trust each other, and I think guys step up in different ways. So similar answer, but I think that's a big part of our group.
Phil, we had Max on the show last week. Talk about playoff beards. You're getting a lot of love in our chat right now for your Johnny Canuck playoff beard. Who's got the best playoff beard on the team in your opinion?
And
Max
worst if you can.
You can say yourself.
No, Max does have a good one. I think me and him look pretty similar. It's actually coming pretty quickly. Like, I had a little bit of a head start. I always have a beard, but one of our athletic trainers, Ross, has a great beard. Probably doesn't get enough love for it, so I'm gonna say Ross Boss.
That's amazing.
Who gets the most chirps for the worst playoff beard?
Worst playoff beard.
What's Liquor
I don't know.
Mackie got going on
Everyone's
right
got
now?
a different. I don't think anybody's getting chirped, but Clem has an interesting beard. He just grows it under here, so he's got a different. I like it. It's different.
That's awesome. Phil, for you personally, 5 goals in these playoffs. Like, how do you feel about your game at this stage right now? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with my game. You know, from my experience, I've learned, you never get too high, you never get too low. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. Um, and yeah, my focus is on the next game, and being patient for my opportunities, and then just getting into the flow of the game. Not too worried about scoring every game, but I think with my experience, you keep doing the right things over and over again, and you'll get your bounces along the way.
I wanted to ask you about a fellow Italian, Victor Mancini. He obviously joined you guys after the JT Miller trade. Goes down for you guys in Abbotsford, and just watching him play as sort of, your number one defenseman in all situations. It's been really impressive to see the strides that he's made from the outside. From an insider's perspective that you have, what have you noticed about his game? And, you're obviously somebody that has played and had a lot of NHL experience. Do you see Victor as the type of defenseman that could grow into a really effective NHL defenseman one day?
Yeah, I think he's got a great physical frame. Give him 6'3". He's got some bite to his game. And what's really impressed me with him is, for a large guy, he moves around very well. Like, you guys have probably seen, like, he's good at escaping, and you don't really see big guys be able to do that. So I think his maneuverability impresses me. I think he's got all the tools to be a great NHL defenseman. I'm not just saying that because he's a Paisan, but yeah, I think he has a very bright future.
One topic we touched on last week with Max was just the recovery aspect of the game for you, and how that can change when the NHL obviously has a different schedule than the AHL. For you, a guy who's played in both leagues and plays in both leagues throughout the year, like, how much does it change for you, just the fact that you've got a different schedule for you to kind of recover and get yourself ready to go for the next day?
Yeah, I think at this point, the schedules are pretty similar, but during the regular season, the two leagues are different in the sense of the NHL is very sporadic. You could play 3 games one week, you could play 4 games one week, whereas the AHL, most of the time you're playing 2, max 3, and they're always in the same. For the most part, they're always in the same location. So I think it's easier to get your rest, although there are a lot more back-to-backs. But it's easier to get healthy during the week, whereas NHL, you're always kind of dealing with something and playing through something. So, but when it comes to playoffs, like, at least how I approach it is, on a game day or practice day, just focus on your practice. Next day game, focus on the game, and then if you have a day off, just focus on getting your rest and doing whatever you can to make yourself feel better for the upcoming day, whether that's going in biking so your legs don't feel so stiff. I'm a big sauna cold tub guy. On an off day, I don't really want to work out too much, but I'll get a nice sweat and feel good about myself. Hitting up a sauna and a cold tub, but yeah, and then just getting your sleep.
When did you discover the cold plunge? When did you start doing that?
Since I came in, it's been around. I think it's been around for a while, but I don't go too much. The science says you only need a couple minutes.
That's right.
And then it doesn't have any benefits. I don't know, but I'll do like 2 or 3 minutes, mostly every day. At the very least, makes you feel good. It's like a
That's right.
mental win.
It's
So
been a big topic on this show recently. That's why I'm asking you about the cold plunge. We've talked about our cold plunge quota has been hit. We've been talking about it a lot lately. So that's why I wanted to get that one in. Phil, just as we kind of close out here, what do you think? What are you expecting from the Texas Stars here in the next round?
I think it's going to be a good series. Obviously, we haven't played each other this year, so there's going to be a feeling out process. But I think it's going to be two teams going at it. And yeah, like I like our group, but they also have a good team, so it's going to be a challenge. But I know everyone's excited about it, and looking forward to playing. A team we haven't played 10 times already this year.
Yeah, right on. Phil, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Really appreciate it, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you, guys.
There he is. Phil Di Giuseppe. You can go watch him and his Abbotsford Canucks teammates at the Abbotsford Center. Game 1 on Thursday. That is going to be a good series. Like, it is going to be a really good series. And one aspect of it that Phil just mentioned that I didn't even really think of, Harm, is just the unfamiliarity of it all. That adds a whole new element to the series. And from a viewing perspective, I think makes it a lot more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could even tell from Phil's answer there that he's excited to play a team that they haven't already played 10 times before. Like Colorado, for example, who of course was in the same division as Abbotsford, and it makes the pre-scout more interesting, right? Because a lot of times you can dive into, for the Colorado series, you could explore the specific head-to-head matchups and systems wise, what worked, what didn't. Whereas the pre-scout obviously looks a little bit different, where you're going to know what systems Texas plays, and what individual tendencies and habits their star players have, and how you want to potentially game plan to shut them down. But you may not have a concrete sort of reference point as far as their top players, who on our team would be best to match up against them as far as defense pairs or forward lines. So adjusting on the fly is going to be a big key in this series.
And another answer he said, best beard, Ross, a member of that glorious 2019-20 Coquitlam Express team.
Yes, and I've actually just texted him and I said, "Hey, we've got Phil on. He just shouted you out as having the best playoff beard, and our listeners want to see a photo." Ross has responded, "I don't think he wants to share the photo, unfortunately, but I'm trying. We'll see. Maybe by anyone else, I'll be able to get a photo of Ross."
Yeah, good stuff from Phil. Any other takeaways from either of you that you wanted to mention from that interview with Phil?
He genuinely looks like, the way he was talking about Mancini. A lot of times you hear players sort of praising other teammates, and like when you're talking about teammates, you're obviously going to say good things about them. But like here in PDG's case, you could tell that he genuinely meant it and was like, whoa, especially when discussing the maneuverability and how he beats forecheckers at that size. That's not just PDG saying nice things about Mancini just because we teed him up for it. The way he was describing him, that stood out to me as a PDG seems to genuinely believe that this guy's going to turn into an effective NHL defenseman. And, when you have watched Mancini at the AHL level, that is what stands out, is at that size, he's still agile. He's still able to shake forecheckers off. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to obviously monitor his development, not only in this series, but come training camp as well.
And he even said, "I'm not just saying this because he's a Paisan." He made a good point there. I've always wanted to, and this is the funny thing about asking about teammates. Has there ever been a time when a player has been asked about a young teammate like that and been like, "Oh yeah, what have you thought of him? Do you think he has a good future in the NHL?" And the guy just goes, "Yeah, no, I don't actually. No, I really don't." It's fun to always ask that question because you might be the first one day, but I'm curious if there's ever been a case of that. If someone just completely coming out, and I know teammates don't love each other all the time. We definitely know that out here in Vancouver, but for someone to come out in the media and just be like, "Yeah, no, I don't think this guy's got much of a future," about a teammate, I'm waiting for it one day. But okay, I wanted to move on to the RFA targets. You wrote a really good piece here, and I've been honestly dying to get into it. So let's get to our next segment, which is a presentation of the Vancouver Whitecaps. Whitecaps FC extended their club record MLS era unbeaten run to 14 matches across all competitions. They are sitting atop the MLS Supporters Shield standings for most points in the league. The Whitecaps are back home Wednesday. That's tonight, as Minnesota FC is in town, as the Caps look to extend their unbeaten run in MLS play to 10 matches. Whitecaps FC are headed to Mexico and will play in the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup final on Sunday, June 1st against Cruz Azul. This is the first time in club history Whitecaps FC has reached the final and just the third time a Canadian team has ever reached the final. So make sure you're tuning in, folks. Make sure you're watching. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this one. So Whitecaps FC.
Welcome to Vancouver and to BC Place, the home of Jesper Sorensen's Vancouver Whitecaps FC.
Brian White leaps up, Sebastian
Peralta! whitecapsfc.com/tickets. Okay. Let's get to this RFA list. It's a good one. It's a really good one, Harm. Look, you don't need me to toot your horn too much, but it was a really good piece. Now, I'm going to ask a hard-hitting question, okay?
Yeah.
It's written as you and Thomas Drance wrote it.
Yeah.
Be honest, all right? Group project. Who does most of the work? How does this workload get split?
It is usually just like genuinely 50-50.
That's crazy. That's a lie. That's a lie. You're just lying.
No, I'm not. I'm not, though. You can go and ask your answer. Usually how it works is he'll maybe compile like an initial draft list of guys. And then he'll be like, do you think we're missing anybody? And then like, I'll be like, this guy, or like, maybe disagree with that guy. We refine that list and then we split it 50-50. Like Drance will always write the lead. He'll always sort of like write the intro. And then to compensate, I might, like if it's a 12 player list, I might do 7 and he might do 5, but sometimes it's also 6 and 6. So no, this isn't one of those examples or cases where one of us is carrying hard.
All right. I was hoping we were going to get some drama on the show, but we have some good content to talk about because you listed out 12 names. Now, I don't want to do them all in order because I think it goes from like highest profile and most interesting to kind of like lower on the list. So I'll ask you about these bottom 6 names. Okay. You pick one. I guess it's 7, but you pick 1 or 2 and tell me who you really want to talk about here when it comes to being an RFA target for the Canucks. I'll give you the names, okay? Jack McBain, Ryan McLeod, Rasmus Kupari, Morgan Barron, Noah Cates, Maxime, what the hell is that name? Siplikov. I don't know who that is. And Nick Robertson. Give me a name here. And don't pick that Siplikov kid because I've never heard of him.
Well, okay, so I can't say any of the top guys first. The names that I'm like actually excited about.
We'll talk about the other guys first. I'm trying to get through I'm trying to get through the bottom ones first, man.
Okay, fair enough. You're trying to like build the hype.
That's right.
I understand. Okay, so let's go through like reverse like process of elimination. I would probably axe Nick Robertson. He's 5'9", and while he is intriguing from the perspective of like he's been a 14-15 goal guy despite not playing more than 12 minutes per game, he's 5'9", and he's a relatively one-dimensional player. You already got Hoagland and Garland as smaller wingers. Let's axe him. Kupari and Barron are interesting, but they're more like depth names. I don't look at either one of them as necessarily being more than like low end third liners. So, and we want to swing big. So I'll like process of elimination, sort of like X those guys.
Tell me Noah Cates is someone you really like.
I do. I like Noah Cates.
I'm a big Noah Cates guy. I'm getting onto the Noah Cates bandwagon here.
He's like a younger, bigger Pia Suter. That's the potential. So I don't know why NHL.com officially lists him as winger because he's mostly played center for the Flyers. But the point being, he's versatile in being able to play center and wing. He was Philadelphia's go-to shutdown option to defend against other teams' top lines this season. It was also interesting because at the start of the season, he was, I think, healthy scratch for 4 of Philadelphia's first 5 games. So it was like a bit of a rocky start, but then he really figured things out over the course of the season. Cates' defensive results have long been stellar, not just this season, but in years past too, despite the difficulty of his matchups. Quality PK guy. And with the exception of the 2023-24 season, he's been like a reliable bet to chip in with about like 15 goals and like the high 30-point range, almost 40 points in a given season. He's not a perfect fit. He struggles in the faceoff dot, and I think he's definitely a lot closer to a 3C than he is a 2C. But if the Canucks are looking for a versatile, sort of like defensively minded forward to replace Suter, like that would be really attractive. Again, he's 26 years old. He's 6'1" or 6'2". So you'd have control of him for a while. Again, you're not looking at him as like a top 6 solution by any means. But further down the lineup, being able to plug holes all over the lineup and play tough matchups, which when you look at Pettersson and Hedl as the centers you have right now, I don't know that Adam Foote would be comfortable playing either of those guys head-to-head in hard defensive minutes. I think this team could really benefit from like a Swiss Army knife type forward if Suter ends up pricing himself out.
Now, with Noah Cates, again, I look at it in the sense of, okay, you just made a really good point that the number 1 and 2 center on this team, Pettersson, Hedl, not super ideal right now. I look at Noah Cates and say, okay, you need Noah Cates, and then you need to go get a second line center. Am I off on that?
Yeah, no, agree. You're ideally not going into next season with Pettersson and then Hedl Cates. I mean,
even if it's not Cates, like we've had this conversation all season. Whoever you get at center, you want to be able to slot them ahead of Philip Hedl and pretty comfortably as well.
Yeah. Now, maybe the only way you'd be comfortable with Pettersson, Cates, Hedl is if the majority of your cap space is spent on, let's say, like a star winger. You're able to get an Ehlers or a JJ Peterka or Lafreniere, and you think he's going to pop. And your marquee, like big splashy, this guy's going to be the forward with elite potential to take us to the next level is the winger. Because then I think you could say, all right, if the second best forward you're acquiring this summer is Noah Cates, I mean, that's not optimal because this team needs more than just one high-end top 6 forward. But we also have to be realistic, right? The Canucks have around $14-ish million in cap space. They don't have a lot of trade assets. I don't think it's realistic to go out this summer and acquire 2 stars. And as a stopgap, Cates is a totally capable middle 6 center, again, sort of in that Pius Suter mold.
What's that next contract look like? That's going to be the question that everybody asks when we talk about these guys.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot, especially as we talk about potential offer sheets, is we've mentioned the importance of holding on to that 2026 first round pick. I think when it comes to offer sheets with that in mind, you have to be wary of the compensation levels. And so the highest salary / cap that you can go up to where you're only giving up a second round pick is about $4.68 million. Now, if you're the Canucks, you're trying to game out the sweet spot where what's a number that's high enough to where Philly might not want to match, but obviously doesn't exceed that $4.68 million threshold. And the tricky part with Philadelphia is they actually have a lot of cap space. And so if they're high on Cates, even if you go up to $4.68 million, they may match that. That's a threat. They're not strapped for cap space. It really just comes down to how highly do they sort of covet him. And given that that's a team that doesn't have a lot of proven centers as well, I think the trickiest part about acquiring Cates is finding an offer sheet that the Flyers wouldn't match.
Probably gonna have to trade for him. I think that's the ultimate thing that I keep coming back to when we talk about offer sheet candidates and these RFAs. Is like you're probably gonna have to just make a trade for these guys, in my opinion, at least. I think you're gonna, like, if Noah Cates comes to Vancouver, it's not gonna be via offer sheet. It's gonna be via trade. AFP Analytics has him at $4.614 million as his projected cap hit on his next deal, on a 3-year deal. That is what AFP Analytics is projecting.
Siplikov, by the way, is an interesting
name,
sort of like potential breakout. Well, so he's 26 years old. He was signed out of the KHL as this like big time 31 goal scorer. This year, you look at his numbers and they don't jump off the page, right? He only had 10 goals and 35 points in 77 games. But Siplikov is a massive dude. 6'3", 210, but he plays bigger than that too. He could be a wrecking ball in the forecheck. I don't know if fans remember, but he in, I want to say, a November game. It was at Rogers Arena. He laid out Quinn Hughes with an open ice hit. And just that physicality has been a consistent part of his game. And as a player that's only had 1 year of experience at the NHL level, and playing for an Isles team that doesn't create a lot of offense, it's not like he had the most talented line mates to play with. Does he have some upside beyond his current production level? And not to mention management change, right? Matthew Darche is in there now. Siplikov was brought in by the last regime. Does this regime view him as highly as the last regime? Siplikov could be sort of an interesting, like, middle six, like, power forward type. And we know that the Canucks need to get bigger and meaner and nastier up front.
Okay. We've got some breaking news. Oh, no, it's not breaking. Sorry. It came up. David Booth signed in Melbourne. Sorry to distract, but it came up and I thought it was something really important, but it's not. So let's jump right back into it.
All right.
Yeah, no, I like Siplikov. I do. After not knowing who he is, I like this profile. Again, you just said it. Big body, scores, scored 31 goals in the KHL, as you said. I like Siplikov. Didn't know who he was 10 minutes ago, but I might be a Siplikov guy right now.
Can we stop talking about the bottom guys?
Yep.
They're not bad, but like,
No,
there's
I really
one
just
guy
want
I
to
really
talk
want to
about
talk
Noah
about.
Cates. Okay,
All right, fair enough.
And that's JJ Peterka, right?
100%. It's
Talk to
JJ
me about
Peterka.
JJ Peterka.
He's a young, dynamic, speedy winger with star potential. He's 23 years old, and his point production has increased every year since entering the NHL. He had 32 points as a rookie, 28 goals and 50 points as a sophomore, 68 points this season. So already has a really high sort of threshold as an established top six scorer. Prolific 5-on-5 producer. He's scored 2.25 points per 60 at 5-on-5 over the last 2 seasons, which ranks top 20 among all NHL wingers. Fast, dynamic on entries. He's got a lethal shot off the rush. Can beat goalies from distance clean. And if he plays with a playmaker as well, he's talented at getting open in the slot and just these like quick one-timers where he's not overpowering goaltenders necessarily with the power of his shot, but just the quickness of his release. Now, you may be wondering, all right, you got a 23-year-old stud, near 70-point guy. What's the potential complication? How could the Canucks even realistically pry him away? And this is where the Sabres have a trio of our big RFA decisions to make on Peterka, on Byram, on Ryan McLeod, who had a breakout season and is a valuable centerman as well. Plus, Alex Tuch is a year away from unrestricted free agency, and I anticipate that they're going to be trying to lock him up this summer. So the point being, like, they've got a lot of other big contracts on the horizon here. And the key is, despite Peterka breaking out with 68 points offensively, he had a really rough year defensively. His defensive analytics were the worst among Sabres forwards. And the theme for the Sabres this year was, okay, this team can score, but they don't defend. And we know that the Sabres are potentially looking at shaking up their core. So do they look at Peterka and the inflated potential price of his next contract, which I think he's potentially an $8 million guy on a long-term deal. You look at Matt Coronado. We've brought this example up many times. He's coming off a 24-goal, 47-point season, and he's a $6.5 million player. So Peterka coming off a 68-point season is going to make significantly more. So the question for Buffalo is, are you ready to fully buy in and commit to Peterka as an $8 million player when you've got a lot of other sort of major contracts on the horizon here, and when he's had a down year defensively? To me, I would bet on the talent of the player. And if you're the Canucks, you look at his defensive numbers this year and go, yeah, he's got flaws, but he's 23 years old. Like, young players can figure out and round out other parts of their game. And most importantly, his defensive numbers weren't bad at all in 2023-24. So this could just be a 1 year kind of outlier, especially on a Sabres team that just as a whole doesn't defend very well. And sometimes a player's defensive play can improve when they're in a tighter, more insulated, like more structured defensive environment, which Vancouver would obviously be compared to Buffalo. So I would be all over Peterka. He has the potential to be like be a consistent 70 to 80 point guy.
And then some, I'd say. 23, and he's already putting up those kind of numbers. Might be able to do more than that, especially in Vancouver.
Yeah, and I'd be trying to work out a trade here. You don't need to work out an offer sheet necessarily. That's plan B, obviously. But you can also go into trade negotiations with the leverage that, hey, if we can't work out a trade here, we can offer sheet your guy too. And this is where it's going to be interesting, right? Because what do the Sabres, if they're open to the idea of moving Peterka, what would they want for him? We know that they are desperate for right side, top 4 defense help. That's where I look at like a Tom Willander and go, Tom Willander in his prime would be the perfect piece for that Sabres blue line, because Dahleen and Power on the left side are more offensively oriented guys, and they need more of like a steady defensive stopper who will be reliable in his own end, big body, defensively responsible, on and on. The complication is Willander isn't going to be that top 4 answer right away. He's young. He may need some time to marinate in the American League. So how appealing is Willander? That's one of the pieces that I would expect if the Sabres are entertaining the idea of trading Peterka to the Canucks. He'd be one of the pieces that I would expect Buffalo to target or at least be intrigued by.
Okay, other names on your list: Matthew Nyes, Marco Rossi, Gabe Vilardi, Bowen Byram. Let's focus on those ones. Give me one you want to talk about here. I like Matthew Nyes a lot. I feel like ultimately it's not that realistic, though. I'm worried about how they would get Matthew Nyes to Vancouver. That seems like a player Toronto won't part with. Yeah,
Nyes would be the home run answer there. But as you said, I think he's the least likely of those names to not make it through. I'll give you a name that didn't end up on the list that we sort of overlooked. And in hindsight, I should have caught this one too. Will Cooley out in New York. I think there are a lot of factors that could make this potentially work. Cooley is a big, powerful 6'3" winger. He's an excellent forechecker, heavy body, genuinely physical, right? Some guys have the size, but they don't actually play a mean game. Will Cooley plays a mean game. He racks up a ton of hits. Broke out with 20 goals and 45 points as a sophomore this year. I believe he's 23 years old. So you're looking at him as a player that could still have further upside. And for a young player to take a step on that Rangers team where almost everybody disappointed, that's meaningful. Now with Cooley, it's also fascinating because the Rangers, according to Puckpedia, have less than $10 million in cap space. Keandre Miller is also an important RFA that they have to make a decision on. I would imagine that Miller, since he's coming off a bridge deal, wants a lucrative long-term extension, even though he's coming off a bit of a down year. So if you're prioritizing re-signing Keandre Miller, could you make the Rangers uncomfortable with an offer sheet that, again, is in that sort of maybe $4.6 million range, where the compensation would only be a second-round pick, but that cap number could potentially be higher than the Rangers would want to go with Cooley? Because I imagine they're thinking if we can bridge him on a cheap sort of like 2-year deal in the 2-3 million range, that would probably be optimal for them. By getting to the $4.6 million range, it could get interesting with their cap situation, because as much as they would want to keep him, they'd have to, I would imagine, move other pieces around potentially to match that kind of offer sheet. One name that really I don't want to say surprised me to see on your list, but one that I think maybe was one that I scratched my head at a little bit, Bowen Byram. I feel like the ship sailed on Bowen Byram. Wasn't the time to trade for Bowen Byram before they got Marcus Pettersson? This team doesn't need more defensemen. Explain Bowen Byram being on this list to me. I actually agree with you. That was one of those where I actually pushed back on that when we were like making the list. Because again, like Drancer does an amazing job of like drafting up the first list and doing the grunt work in the beginning, and then I'll sort of give my feedback. Like I wanted to include Peterka, and I pushed back on Byram. But he made the point that the Canucks defense, like long term, still isn't really set. And his point was, look, the Canucks have shown interest in him in the past, and the Canucks probably shouldn't be going after him this summer. But he's a high profile guy. It's a long list. We can include him. And then he literally told me, you can include in his section it doesn't make sense for the Canucks specifically to go after him. And that's what we did in that section. The conclusion was basically he'd be intriguing for other teams, but the Canucks specifically probably shouldn't go for him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, any other name you wanted to bring up on this list before we move on to anyone else?
No. Those are the main ones. I think we did a pretty good job of breaking it down.
Excellent. All right, let's get to, or before anyone else, I want to tell everybody about Greta. All right. By now, you know that Greta's a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. With great street food and the arcade game, it's always a fun time. Plenty of options both on the menu, at the bar, and the arcade. My personal favorite in the arcade, of course, being the football and basketball games. Make Greta your spot for your next event. For more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. And now let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. All right. We got a nooner at the Nat coming up on Friday the 30th, and check out the White Spot Family Fun Sunday on June 1st. Make sure you bring the kids. They get to run the bases post game. And of course, on Sunday, as I've mentioned, there's a Bob Brown Bear stuffy giveaway. It's always a fun day on a Sunday afternoon at the ballpark, so make sure you head on down. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. And I said this yesterday too, Trey Savage, number 2 prospect in the Jays organization, projected to start on Saturday, which is also a 1 p.m., noon or 1 p.m. start. It's an afternoon start at Nat Bailey Stadium, so make sure you go watch Trey Savage pitch on Saturday. And Sunday as well. There's going to be a good game as well. Okay. This one from Ty David. And we should touch on this one right away because we talked about offer sheets. He said, I've heard the Canucks would need to acquire their own third-round pick to make an offer sheet. Is that for any offer sheet or just those where the compensation includes a third? So it is just for the ones that are in that range. The only thing is you need that third to be in a couple different ranges. So basically, the Canucks could do anything from, I believe it's 2 point something to 4.5 roughly. And then it goes to 11 million. They can do that because they have all their first round picks right now. But again, if you're offer sheeting someone $11+ million, that's a big thing that you're doing. And as you saw on those targets, there's not really anyone that fits that bill. Maybe Matthew Nyes, but anyways, let's not go down that road. But to answer the question, yeah, they would need to go acquire their own third round pick back. Someone told me, because I was talking about this recently with someone, and I said, oh, like the Flames would excuse me, like the Flames would ever trade that pick back to the Canucks. And someone said, hang on a second. That's happened before, that teams just make a trade to get their pick back and just do themselves, do each other some favors. The Flames and Canucks have been trading partners in the past. Can we see the Flames just kind of throw the Canucks a bone and give back their third round pick here?
I would imagine you'd need to add a bit of a sweetener. I mean, we saw the Blues. I believe they reacquired one of their own draft picks from the Penguins before they made those dual offer sheets. So it's happened before. I would imagine if you're calling up the Flames and you're specifically asking about, hey, can we get back our 2026 third round pick? They would know what's up. That you need that pick in order to make an offer sheet, and that's, if I'm Craig Conroy, a situation where, sure, I'm willing to give you that pick, but I want a bit of a premium value. You're going to need to toss in like a little bit of a sweetener to really incentivize me to give you that pick back.
Yep, absolutely. This one from S. Little Boston. He said, Will Cooley is the type of player Vancouver needs. Size, physicality, protects his teammates. I was going to point this out too. Same point totals as Alexis Lafreniere. Again, this guy's young. Will Cooley's young. I don't know, man. You throw out names and all of a sudden I become big fans of these guys. I hadn't thought about Will Cooley as a real example, but he might be the guy. He might be the guy, Harm. Well, who's the bandwagon I was on earlier? Oh yeah, Siplakov. That guy. That's my other guy. I like both of these guys. Give me both.
As soon as I just drop a 6'3" or a 6'4", you're on board immediately.
Yep.
I could say anything after that and you'd be like, done, sold.
If you go back and watch, and this will only apply to people on the video podcast. If you go back and watch the video, as soon as you said 6'3", I immediately started nodding when you were talking about Chiplakov there. I was immediately nodding when you said
I've heard like 3 different pronunciations of his name from you in a span of like 5 minutes.
It's Siplakov, right?
I think so. Siplikov.
Now you don't know what the heck. You're our names guy. You're supposed to be our pronunciation guy.
I think it's Siplikov.
All right, Siplikov. That looks right. What did I call it? It's okay. It doesn't matter.
I called him Chiplikov during the last attempt.
All right, this one's from S. Little Boston as well. He said, "Do you think Pia Suter will leave to play for Tocchet?" Okay, I think Pia Suter will take his payday. I think a player in Pia Suter's shoes isn't like, oh, I need to find the right coach. I need to find the right scenario. Pia Suter was unsigned 2 seasons ago in August. I think Pia Suter signs early in free agency. I think Pia Suter benefits from what is shaping up to be, in my mind, Harm, 2016 2.0, where teams just have this cap space, the cap's going up, and teams make some big bets on players. Sam Bennett, maybe he gets $10 million on the open market. We don't know, but I think it's going to be and I've said this for a while, it's going to be an offseason where you're shocked at how high some guys sign for. Obviously, I've said the Donato $4 million thing. That's looking really good, but you're going to see these guys like Suter start to get paid a lot more than I think we would have originally thought.
Yeah, and I think there could be an opportunity for teams that maybe don't have as much of an urgency that we need to make an offseason splash and our lineup come October needs to be significantly better to hold onto their cap space and just wait. Be patient, resist the temptation to, as soon as you have this cap space, we got to spend it immediately. If you're patient as a team, and I don't think the Canucks are in this boat because they can't afford to be. They're in that like urgent, we got to make our team a lot better for October mode. But if you're not in that boat, I think there are going to be opportunities, whether it's at the trade deadline or in the 2026 offseason, where the crop of potential free agents is expected to be a lot stronger to swoop in and make some really exciting swings.
I need to read this comment from Charlie in our chat. It is good. All right, ready, Harm? Driving my BZ4X in the HOV lane, in brackets, to the Nat and hitting Greta after to check out that recently updated street food menu if anyone's trying to tap in. I work at the BC Mental Health Foundation, by the way. That is a great comment. That is one of the funniest comments I think I've read on this show in a while. And then he goes, Can I live for 7 days off of Canucks Army sponsors only? I think you could. We got a lot of great sponsors on this show. And don't forget to catch a Whitecaps game. You can do both. You can actually do both because you catch the nooner at the Nat and then you head on down to BC Place and catch the Whitecaps.
Love it.
I think you could do it. Yeah, we should do that. I think that'd be a really fun summer content idea. It's just the ultimate Canucks combo, Canucks Army day where we just hit all of our sponsors. And also, let's not forget the website sponsors as well. Sponsor of the Monday mailbag, the Whistler Golf Club. We could head up onto the Whistler Golf Club. Might be a bit of a busy day, but I think we can pull it off. We'll get started bright and early.
Just book that, Jacob. Book it all.
Yeah, thank you. There you go, Harm. Now you catch it on that. Jacob, book all that.
Yep. Oh yeah. I'll be sure to find a day where the Whitecaps Canadians play on the same day at different times, and we can get a tea time, and Greta's open, and I'm sure it'll be easy.
A mint BZ4X too.
That's right. Yeah. Almost forgot that. Thank you, Harm. Thank you. All right. Okay, I want to get this last one in. This was from Rajcraft. We'll close it out after this. He said, do you think there are any PLD type targets that have had a bad year and could bounce back next year? We wrote about this at Canucks Army. Tyson did an article recently. If there's any targets out there that fit a similar kind of mold of that, of course, Darcy Kemper, PL Dubois trade.
Yeah, I mean, Lafreniere coming off a down year stands out. I've mentioned that a couple times before. Zegras, it's worth kicking tires on. It's worth thinking about. I'm not saying I'd pay a lot for it. In fact, I wouldn't pay a lot for it. But if the price is reasonable, this team just needs more skill. And look, I don't love the idea of Pettersson, Zegras, Hedl down the middle from a hard to play against perspective. But you can't, if you're in the Canucks position, be solely looking at like, just broadly speaking, if you're going to acquire a player that is young, on a great contract, on the upswing, there are no concerns, no question marks. that player is going to cost you an arm and a leg. And the
Mhm.
position the Canucks are in, like, you to some extent have to.
You got to get lucky.
Well, it's not just get lucky. It's just you have to take calculated risks. Where if you're right, there's significant untapped upside. Like when you're the Washington Capitals and you make that bet on PLD when everybody thinks it's a horrible idea, ourselves included last summer, and nobody wants to touch that contract. The upside of not just getting the player, but the fact that you offloaded an inconvenient contract and didn't give anything up, like those are the trades where you make like a massive sort of where you have a massive sort of upside win where your return on investment is just off the charts. If you acquire like a Peterka, for example, right? As much as I love JJ Peterka and you should go after him, and if there's a reasonable reasonable ask, I would pay full market value for him happily. But those aren't like that's a good move, but you're not getting like it's not going to be a steal in hindsight because he's a proven guy. He's a near 70-point player, gonna have to give up a lot to get him. So even if you hit, it's like, okay, that's great, but you obviously gave up a lot for that. So now Zegras specifically, I don't know if the Ducks are at a point where they're willing to sell low on him necessarily. So if you call up Pat Verbeek and he's asking for a lot and he wants like a 2026 first round pick, or he's calling about your top prospects and he wants an attractive package, then no, like you back away from that. And at that point, you're like, then you might as well go for the sure thing, like a guy like a Peterka. But if he's a distressed asset, then you at least think about it.
I think that's airtight logic. Did you see the Bath and Body Works advertisement with Quinn Hughes and Jack Hughes?
No, I didn't.
You should go check it out. It's really funny. It's on Quinn's Instagram. Yeah, it's. I don't know, man. I'm not gonna talk shit. It's funny. It's funny. And Trevor Zegras had a really funny comment on that post, which is what made me think of that. But yeah, I think you're bang on, Harm. You're bang on with that. Because I've said before I don't like Trevor Zegras, and I don't. But I like Trevor Zegras if he costs you like 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're keeping those premium assets that you're gonna, like we talked about it, man. You're gonna need to take some swings this offseason. You're gonna need a lot of stuff to go right for you. You're going to need a lot of assets to pull that off. And if you can get away with getting one of these distressed assets for like a second or third or a combination of that, I like that. I like that idea.
And here's the thing. You may make those calls and those GMs are like, no, we're not selling a guy like that for that low. But you make the call anyway. You kick tires. And if the price isn't that low, you just move on. Like the point is, don't leave any stone unturned. Just because Zegras may not have the most likable personality and whatever, like you don't just have him on I would never consider adding that guy. That's a terrible idea. Like don't scoff at the idea. At least make the call before you completely rule it out. Is the point I'm trying to make. I want to emphasize that because I'm not sitting here being like, oh yeah, Trevor Zegras is a perfect player and I love him and they should pay a lot for him. It's more just the position the Canucks are in right now. You can't leave any stone unturned. You cannot just immediately write guys off that might have the potential to really blossom. Because if Zegras hits, we're talking about a guy that we're not talking about the potential to hit 65 points and be a top 6 centerman. We're talking about a guy who's already done that and did that in his early 20s, not just once, but twice. So change of scenery. Could he be a 60, 70 point guy? Absolutely. Why not?
Jackson in the chat said Zegras just turned 24. Room to grow yet. All right. I like it. We were going to do another quiz today, but we're going to save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a quiz-heavy show. Family Feud tomorrow on Thursday. We need a ton of responses still. Maybe because we didn't have a show on Monday, so we didn't plug it, and I also forgot to plug it yesterday. So it's Wednesday. Please fill out the Family Feud survey. We might have to put this one out to the commenters. How many do we need, Jacob? How many responses do we need?
Still need about 50.
All right.
Which
Well,
we've gotten 50 in a day before. I'm not too.
Yeah,
worried.
there's well over 100 people watching live right now, and there's
another
thousands
900 on Twitter. Who, if you're watching on Twitter, you just got to go over to our YouTube channel. Trust me, find us on YouTube, and you'll be able to get to the Family Feud survey.
We have more people on Twitter that watch on YouTube.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh, all right.
I don't know why the experience is better on YouTube, and you have the live chat. You know, it's a better viewing experience.
We've got tens of thousands on podcasts, so you people just, you know.
Well, they can access it from the description. Easy on podcast.
Not if you're driving. Not if you're driving.
Well, you just check in once you get to your destination.
Remember when I admitted to? Never mind. All right, let's get to Bet365. I was about to make a joke that red lights are a gray area. They're not a gray area. You're not allowed to use your phone at a red light. Right.
Dude, I was a week ago. I was driving and at a red light, I was in the right turn lane. I was about to take a right. I saw a guy in the lane next to me trimming his beard, like a beard trimmer, like actively, like looking in the mirror or something. I don't know if he was looking in the mirror or just like freestyling it, but just like I think he was trying to go clean shaven. Had a bit of stubble, literally like trimmer out at the red light, just like
red light.
You're crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. That's insane.
I was like, that's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. Yeah. All right. I like to eat in the car. I eat a lot in the car. I'm a big drive-through guy. I'll admit to that. I like to eat in the car. It's a good time. All right. Panthers Hurricanes tonight. Let's do it. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. The Panthers are underdogs. Or no, excuse me. They're the favorite, but only slightly. Like the Hurricanes are slight underdogs tonight. So I'm taking the Panthers. Panthers money line. I said it. They're closing this thing out in 5 games. Tonight is game 5. Gentlemen's sweep of those Carolina Hurricanes. I am taking the Panthers money line. You can get it at minus 115 odds over at Bet365. And if you want to get into the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Bet365 has got you covered. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, final thoughts, either of you?
None.
Mike in the Valley saw another dude brushing his teeth at a light. Question was, where does he spit? Ugh.
Oh, that's brutal.
Dude, we don't need to get into this. I once saw a dude.
Quads really wants to tell on himself here. He's got something.
No, it wasn't about this one wasn't about me. This one wasn't about me. No. This one wasn't about me and watching rink wide while I drive. This was Big Hog Hockey said quad scrolls at red light. I definitely don't do that, but I have seen people do that. I think that's insanity. Like people scrolling your timeline, like that's an actual, like, you have a smartphone addiction that you need to fix. Like you need to get help if that's what you're doing at a red light.
It's a crime. It
is a crime.
Literally illegal. Like
that too, I guess that too. But yeah, no, what I was going to say is I've seen a dude needed to spit, spit a lot, if you get where I'm going with this, at a red light, and he just like opens the door and he leans out and just, it was disgusting. I hate that. Oh, it's so gross. Yeah. Oh, apparently spitting out your window is a crime. Is that really a crime? Spitting.
I don't know. In some countries it is. Can't spit at all, like in Singapore. I know that's pretty strict. Other Southeast Asian countries as well have laws against spitting, but I don't know about that here. I've definitely seen that too, with people spitting
only
out their
spitting
window.
on someone's car. If you spit on someone, you can't do that. If you spit on someone's car or house, any private property, you can't spit on someone's. Only private. Yeah. Mischief. You'd get charged with mischief. All right.
Court Conversation brought to you by
conversation.
Bet365.
Yeah. All right. Let's close it out there. Hold on. Oh, yeah, we'll close it out there. All right, for my co-host Armin Dial and our technical producer Jacob Bazar, my name is Dave Gugelli. Our thanks again to Phil Di Giuseppe for joining us on today's show. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Fill out that Family Feud survey. My name is Dave Gugelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live.